The Pompano in Cape Hatteras. We are fortunate here in Cape Hatteras to have a chance at the largest pompano on the East Coast once a year. The pompano's home is Florida, Atlantic side, and the Gulf. But once a year, in the spring, the adults search for water temperature and head north searching for ideal water temperatures between 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Cape Hatteras is also a breeding ground for the Florida pompano. Many times in July and August, you will catch small ones that were born here, and you see the babies wash up in the surf. So the Florida pompano has two reasons to be here. First is they are heading north for ideal temperatures, and second, it's a breeding ground. Let's talk about the breeding ground first. The pompano used several different types of habitats. Some of the different habitats that they use include coastal regions close to shore and within the surf zone, bays, offshore regions, estuaries, inlets, and more. Fish of different ages and sizes utilize different habitat types. And for some reason they like oil rigs way offshore. Now what I am about to say is pure speculation on my part, but after seeing all the babies in the surf I know this is a breeding ground, and I know they need food for energy, and also know the sand fleas show up about the same time they migrate, so my theory is since they're migrating north they have to come in and search for the sand fleas, who are now in the surf zone, for energy for their long trip north. My second belief is this is a spawning ground. While they're in there eating food, the female will release her eggs, and the male will fertilize the eggs in the surf zone. This happens a specific time a year only during the migration. So once a year, we have a chance to catch nice large pompano in the surf zone near the shore. I call that the inside game. 20 feet off the beach. It's a wonderful time of the year, and everybody wants a piece of it. But it doesn't last forever. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 6 weeks. The when is never predictable. I have seen them here in March, April, May, and June close to shore. The time you can count on them being here is the week before and after Memorial Day weekend. That is the only time that's 100%. The sand flea and the shrimp, and of course a good brand of fish bites, is the ultimate bait when they come in, and I would say the sand flea is the best, because that's what they're looking for. This is the only time I use a 2-drop rig. They're going to be looking down, and they're going to be feeding on sand fleas. And then they move on and migrate north. There are local pompano that hang out here during the summer months, but they're typically further back. Remember that water temperature thing. In the summer, you need a nice tall rod, and you need to find the outside sandbar. So out beyond the sandbar, that water temperature is more to their liking. If you catch one short, it's because he is coming in to feed, and it's typically during the high tide cycle. You can catch large pompano during the summer deep, but you always have to have that one rod out there just waiting for one to pass by. Weather and wind. Now as for the early spring and the monsters, I'll get into that later. You want to find a bar, the last bar, close enough in that you can cast over. Your bait that you use has to be small enough and strong enough to survive the cast, whether you're going against the wind or with the wind. South of Buxton, here in northeast about 10 to 15, is the perfect scenario to get in a good cast. More ideal conditions would be in northeast at 5 to 10, and then you would have very clear water and what I call pompano playground. You should check your bait first at 10 minutes, because what I call bait snatchers, if they're out there your bait will be gone and you're going to have a tough day. That's when you have to change to a different bait, such as a fish bites or shrimp that, and use miracle thread to wrap 10 or 12 times so the bait snatchers won't take your bait. The next time you check your bait at 15 minutes, and you will continue to do so the remainder of the day. So it's up to you. Do you want to catch nice fish and keep your bait fresh, or do you want to throw a line out, pull out a chair, drink a few beers, and eat a tomato sandwich? Fresh bait and keeping fresh bait on the line will increase your catch twofold. The big pompano. Now in the early spring, when the large fish are migrating north, I will have 2 lines out, and I will be checking both at 15-minute intervals. So the large migrating pompano typically come through first. The largest, the fastest, and the strongest are leading the pack. I don't know how long it lasts, but it's typically a 2 to 3 week time frame. So your first sign would be your first big pompano, caught deep. From that day forward. You have to hope you have the clear water and keep fresh bait out behind that bar and one on the ditch. Now let's talk about the ditch. The ditch is behind the bar. It's something you can feel, so if you throw out behind the bar you can reel in, and you will feel your line loosen up a little, and that will tell you that it's falling down into the ditch. It could be a shallow ditch, or it could be a deep ditch. You will know the difference. So out of the two rods I have over the bar, one is always in the ditch, and one is as far as I can throw it. This year the ditch proved to be the place to be. Out of the two rods, indeed the one in the ditch always got the fish. There was only one pompano caught that was past the ditch this entire 2-week time frame. So there you have it. It's all about season. It's all about timing. It's all about when you catch that first big pompano deep and what you do with it after that. There is no science. There's just effort and understanding. The one hook thing. The one hook rig started a few years ago of the many years we've been pursuing pompano. We noticed, and every time we caught one it was on the top hook, so then we went to a bead on the top. So one day, I decided to use a float, and the pompano catches increased dramatically. I remember a day when my grandsons caught 12 in 2 days. Of course, I would throw it deep for them, and they would get to reel it in. That was really the moment in time when I decided I'm only going to use one hook and throw it deep. From there, I played with my artistic capability, and I started painting some rigs that would catch the fish's attention. We already know that the float was doing his job, but I needed some pretty colors, and my first batch really looked like a bunch of Easter eggs, and they were ugly, but the more he kept at it, the better they looked, and now they've transformed into something that emulates the pompano's favorite bait. The sand flea, the coquina clam, the sand flea eggs, the ghost shrimp. These are the floats that I now sell with my rigs, the One Hook Wonder. In the next section below, you will see and read why I use 25-pound disappearing pink Yo-Zuri leader line and the strongest hooks that money can buy. The bycatch is awesome. While fishing for pompano, we catch some of the most exciting fish of the year. Some of the largest sheepshead and black drum we have ever seen were caught last year while we were fishing for pompano. We weren't targeting them, they were just swimming in the same school as the migrating pompano. We are using the same rigs and the same bait that we use for pompano. It just happens. So when this happens, you want to make sure you don't have cheap store-bought pompano rigs that will bend easily or cheap leader line that breaks at a knot. This would be the second reason I started making my own rigs. The same clear blue water and weather conditions I've described earlier is when we catch these fish. So in conclusion, pompano fishing is not rocket science here in Cape Hatteras. So it is a short season, but it's a very exciting time from mid-April into mid-June. Over the summer, it's just fishing for fun until the fall arrives, and I'll write another piece on fall fishing later. Sincerely, Jim Price. Psycho Surf Fishing, LLC.